Hello, everybody. My name is Will Deming. I am the president of HavenScope, and on this week's episode of the HavenScope Podcast, we have myself as well as
Allison.
Ooh. This is your third episode in a row.
Third time's the charm.
Exactly. I think that's the most anyone's been on the podcast in a row, I believe, other than myself.
I will be awaiting my certificate and trophy the next time around.
All right, definitely, for sure. I will not just completely forget about that instantly. Actually, you can have one of the many ducks that are currently in the studio and in the building itself that are just littered around everywhere.
Yes, all around Robinson are little itty bitty tiny ducks. I don't know who's spreading the whimsy, but I'm very appreciative of it.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just keep noticing them everywhere. But for this week, what have you been watching recently?
So, I've been watching a lot of Impractical Jokers. Oh. It's not what I'm going to talk about today, but I wanted to shout out Impractical Jokers.
Okay.
Because, you know, we're getting into final season, getting into stuff being really stressful. And Impractical Jokers has been a fantastic little soft landing place for me lately.
Okay.
Nothing ever goes wrong.
Yeah.
You just, some silly New Yorkers doing silly New Yorker stuff. Love Impractical Jokers. But this week I watched a French film.
Ooh.
And that was very interesting. L'argent, which translates to money.
That's just the title of the movie?
Money.
Huh. What's it about?
So it's based off of Leo Tolstoy's The Forged Coupon or The Forged Bill. I don't know. I was reading in French, so it might have translated weird.
Ooh, okay.
And it is about a man who ends up, you know, with counterfeit money, and he ends up paying for something with counterfeit money, and everything goes downhill from there.
Oh.
He started out innocent, but then in the pursuit of money, he ends up not so innocent. Don't want to necessarily spoil it, but there's a long chain of events that kind of goes into, you know, corruption and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about it because it was a very, very interesting watch. Very interesting watch. 1983.
Oh, okay. I was about to ask, like, when this movie came out, so 80s.
Yeah, okay. 1983. Not a lot of dialogue. I think
really?
Throughout the entire movie, there was maybe 20 minutes total of dialogue.
Huh.
So it was a little bit hard to follow. You know, I'm in French classes and stuff, but I'm not fluent in French. So I'm sure, you know, it might have been easier to follow if the translation subtitles would have been better, or, you know, I knew French. But very minimal dialogue. So it was a lot of show don't tell.
Okay.
And very, like, the camera would stay on a shot for a really long time before anything happened, but it would be like a really interesting shot and like very colorful, and it was a very pretty film.
Was this like, I think you had mentioned, were you watching this for a class or something like that?
Yes, I had to watch a movie for class.
Did they choose this specifically because of the type of movie this was? Because of the whole, like, there's not that much dialogue, and then, like, is it like a specific style? Was it just a French movie they thought that was interesting, or was there like something else to this, that why they chose that for this?
So I actually ended up choosing it on my own. We were given free reign. We could choose any, you know, French language movie we wanted. And L'Argent was the first one that came up on HBO Max when I typed in French language films.
I was about to say, you chose the one with the least amount of dialogue in it.
I got lucky there. But no, it was a really good movie. And I thought it was pretty interesting because we've talked about for the last couple podcasts now how a lot of stuff is kind of overdoing it with the dialogue and telling you outright, you know, what's going on. And this very much felt like the opposite. It very much kind of felt like the director was saying, if you didn't get it, move on. Like, your loss.
I got to interrupt you, Allie, because I have to let the audience know that, hey, we're recording a podcast right now, so that just in case you weren't paying attention, as plenty of movies and TV shows like to do nowadays, got to make sure to let the audience know what we're doing right now.
We're talking about film
Yep. Get off your phones, kids. But like,
or stay on your phone and consume too much media at once. That has to be good for your brain.
Exactly. But so you brought up that like the way that like there's a bunch of like single shots that kind of like stay that way. So if there's not that much dialogue in the film, like how significant is it when someone speaks in the movie? Like is it this character kind of by himself a lot, or is it more just like do they do it like a silent film almost, or is it just you're seeing a lot of these like quiet moments?
It's a lot of quiet moments.
Okay.
It's a lot of like kind of reading the emotions of the characters instead of having them talk about it, or like you're just kind of like they show a letter, and instead of having a conversation, it's written on the letter quick, and then there's a 5-minute scene with no dialogue based off of what you read in the letter of characters like reacting and stuff to it.
Are we seeing the letter like on screen, or is it just, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting movie. I recommend giving it a watch. It ends very suddenly.
Oh no!
And the credits were at the beginning instead of at the end.
Yeah, that movies did tend to do that. Like back in the day, the first movie we ever did on this podcast was Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and that also has the credits at the beginning.
That is one of my favorite opening credits of all
that's
time.
Yeah, that's got some other stuff.
So good.
But yeah, no, that is something that movies did used to do. If you did that nowadays, everyone would probably just walk out,
pick up their phones.
Unfortunately, yes. No, they'd be looking at their phones and be like, did I miss the movie? What's going on? Where's the after credit? The after credit scene is the whole movie?
But it took me by surprise, because it was just the last scene of the movie and then the movie was over. So I was like, oh, we're done.
Dang.
Doesn't end on a cliffhanger necessarily, but it just a very abrupt end.
Okay. Is it? I'm going to assume this, especially since it's in French. Would you recommend this? Like I would definitely be interested in checking this movie out. But like, I'm going to assume this is not the kind of movie you would just recommend to like an average audience or like general audience, that kind of thing.
I think it's an important movie.
Okay.
Because it's the whole message of money will corrupt people, and good people will do bad things for money, and that kind of message that I think is really important to hear, especially these days, and blah 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 blah. And because it isn't a lot of dialogue, it's kind of, I think it's easier to watch. Yeah. Since it's in another language. You don't have to be dedicating all of your time to reading the subtitles or something like that. It does get a little violent towards the end.
Okay.
But nothing too, gruesome and terrible. I'd recommend it. I'd recommend it to an audience that doesn't hate French films.
Okay.
Because I do know there is a good chunk of the population that hears the words French film and just they're done.
Well, the sad part is it's not even just French. It's like anything that would be subtitled. It doesn't even have like a dub or something like that. And even then, like some people don't even like listening to dub. Although I would say most of the time I would never listen to a dub of a movie. I'd much rather just see it subtitled, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other films by the director that you know of that you'd be interested in checking out?
I probably will go and check out more of his work if I can find it anywhere, because L'Argent was his final film. Okay. And from what I read, that's kind of his style, to do minimal dialogue, those longer, really colorful scenes. So I'll probably try to find something else. Seems like he does a lot of money and corruption themed stuff.
Could say maybe capitalism.
Maybe.
It always comes back to one thing.
All roads lead to capitalism.
Exactly. And you said this was on HBO or Max?
Max.
Okay, Max. Yes, not HBO Max.
And they changed their logo, their colors in their logo.
Oh.
Instead of being like blue and white, now they're black and white.
Ah.
Justement, il n'est pas bon. Et celui-là? Non plus. Celui-là? Alors rendez-les-moi, j'irai les rendre au monsieur qui me les a donnés et qui m'en donnera d'autres.
Je ne te les rendrai pas.
De quel droit vous les gardez?
Tu es l'un de ces petits malfrats qui répandent partout la fausse monnaie.
Well, speaking of HBO or Max HBO or whatever, I've been also watching something else that was on it. It's called The Pitt. It's a brand new TV show that just premiered. I think it was end of January. It is a medical drama. It stars Noah Weil, or Wiley. Is it Wiley or Weil? I cannot remember. And it takes place in an emergency room. And the fascinating thing about it is its main gimmick, and while I hate to use the word gimmick, I guess in a certain sense it is a gimmick, is that it's kind of like 24, where it takes place in real time. It takes place over the course of one shift that this doctor and a bunch of other doctors, residents, attendings, I forget if they're interns technically or not, but it takes place in an emergency room in Pittsburgh, and the entire season, which is 15 episodes, takes place over 15 hours. So it's just a very rapid pace going from one thing to the next. And I think honestly, that's the thing that drew me to the show the most, because I've watched like different medical dramas or shows over the years, like Grey's Anatomy. What a show that is, still going. So it takes a lot for me nowadays to be interested in something like a medical drama. Just because there's always a lot of melodrama. You never know how accurate they are, that kind of thing. And I have, for all intents and purposes, The Pitt is pretty medically accurate. It is supposedly, I believe, maybe, I don't know if there's been more doctors come out or say anything like that, but for the most part, it's been said to be one of the most realistic medical shows that have ever been on TV, that kind of thing. And I think that, alongside like the rapid pace of the show, where it still kind of has like the melodramatic kind of like character stuff you kind of expect from like a medical drama nowadays. But I think what works for this show is that rapid fire pace. You're always just going into something else. There's always something happening that is catching your attention, and the detail that they go into with this show for what they are showing on screen is more than I have ever seen in any TV show or anything. And I should mention it's streaming only, so that's why they show you everything to the point where I am not going to show some stuff, obviously even blurred out.
Look it up on your own time if you're 18 plus or have a parent's permission.
I would not watch this with not that it's like sexual stuff like that, but like I don't think I would watch this with family. And don't watch this if you are very woozy. Within the first episode, I will be blunt and say that you see a woman's leg degloved, and if you don't know what degloving is, do not look it up. Do not looking it up. It is very graphic. But
whatever you think degloving is, you're probably close.
It is very graphic. Do not look it up, as an actual disclaimer, no joke. But it's the kind of thing where they show you everything like that, and whoever does the makeup or the special effects on the show should win an award, because a lot of it is amazing, and a lot of it is like, it feels like you're watching, like, say, a medical video like on the internet of like actual surgeries and stuff like that. Like, they really did their homework for this show.
Is it practical effects?
Yes, it is practical effects. I think there's it was actually I think today is the day. I watched it last night. The finale for the season actually aired, and there was one small shot at the very end that I think was obviously CGI, but everything else, no. Everything else is basically practical, and it looks amazing, to the point where I don't want to look at it because it is so realistic.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, I think that's one of the things that works in the favor of this show. It's like, if you've ever seen The Bear, it's a little bit like that in terms of like the breakneck pace. I would still say The Bear is faster, that kind of thing. Okay. But I think that's just what helps this show kind of stand out from a ton of other like medical like dramas that have come out over the years, that kind of thing. Because like at a certain point they all blend together. It's like the same thing with like cop shows, where it's like, oh, premiering this fall, it's the rookie guy person retiree.
I can't even.
There's
so many cop shows. There's so many like medical shows too, or fire shows, or other kinds of emergency response that I can't name them all.
They blend together so much.
There's one for every major city.
Pretty much. There's so many spin-offs of like NCIS, like
isn't there like 4 different NCISs?
I don't even know at this point.
Because there's a bunch of CSIs
there's a bunch of CSIs. Like I don't even know if like they're connected, which networks. So there's so many. But here's the thing: people still watch them. That's the thing. They're still very, very popular.
People still watch them, and no matter how many different ones there's major audiences for each one of them. No matter how ridiculous they get. Mm-hmm. I don't know which one it is. Something 911, I'm assuming. With the B-NATO?
Well, okay, not even B-NATO. Did you see the clip of the girl that gets like a harmonica stuck in her mouth? I'm not even going to show that on this. It's not realistic looking, but it looks so stupid, and it is ridiculous.
I have not seen that, but I'm going to later.
It is she looks like a cartoon character when it's happening. Maybe this is happening in real life. I don't know.
Nice.
But okay, the Pitt is not like these at all. Even if some of like there's like some melodramatic character stuff, and it's very accurate. The amount of things that happen in this one shift, because it's obviously still a season of a TV show, is still astronomically more than what would typically happen in an actual ER room. But like I said, there have been medical professionals out there that have been like, this show is actually very, very well done in terms of what they are doing on, like, even just like physically what they're doing on screen. Like the actors went through a boot camp of like kind of how to like act. Like it's one thing to act and memorize your lines. It's another to look like you're doing something on screen that resembles what they would do in real life.
And
like,
I think that's a really cool thing to give to your actors, especially if they are going to be playing doctors and nurses and stuff like that, is that little bit of, you know, additional, like the method acting. Like I think that shows in the performance.
Yeah, like it's something you always see like from musicians is like if there's an actor in a movie and maybe it's not a big role, but like a lot of times you'll hear from musicians like, oh, they're playing a piece in the scene, but what they're actually hitting on the bass on like the piano or something like that is not at all what that would actually sound like in real life.
I do like when I'll see on like Instagram and stuff like that, people will go in and play like what the actors are actually playing, and it's just a bunch of random notes and chords.
Exactly.
And stuff.
Yeah. So I think it definitely helps a lot that like you really feel like you really feel like you're in an emergency room. And just, I think that's what drew me to it and what I've enjoyed a lot about it, because at the end of the day, there is still those melodramatic parts that are kind of a little like, this is a little medical drama-y, but like it works because it has those moments and then it's kind of moving on to the next thing.
So if you don't watch the medical shows for the melodrama and the romance and the, for lack of a better term, chick flicky aspects of it, what draws you to the medical dramas?
Well,
asking the big questions here today.
I think the other part is like, I haven't watched another medical drama in so long, so I think hearing about like the whole, like I said, I still hate to call it a gimmick, but hearing about the way that they're doing the show, the whole it's in real time, it is very medically accurate, like that's the kind of things you're like, okay, I'll check this out. And like, it's like when I brought up The Bear, that fast paced keeps it fresh. It keeps you kind of like, I don't want to say on your toes, but like it makes everything work. Okay. Whereas if it was like slower, like it's an emergency room and that kind of thing, it helps. It's just hard to say, but like it keeps everything fresh for me, that it doesn't feel like a Grey's Anatomy. It feels like, okay, I like The Pitt, I'll watch it when there's a second season. There is a second season that is confirmed, that kind of thing. But like a bunch of other ones, it's like they all just blend together so much that like, to me, it at least felt like it managed to bridge that gap for me and get me to actually be interested in watching it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I watch them for the melodrama, corny romances, and, you know, like Grey's Anatomy, the shooting and the plane crash and the boat crash and the this person and the that person dies, but then they come back to life, and I love all that stuff. There
is still melodrama. There's not necessarily going to be everyone goes on a plane and dies, that kind of thing. But it actually is interesting because they've already talked a little bit about the second season, because this takes place over one shift, and they've already mentioned like there will be a time jump, like that kind of thing, because you kind of have to. You can't really just do a second season and it's the next day. You got to let these characters like kind of evolve like off screen and then come back. And so that it kind of gives them an interesting, both like a problem to solve for how they're even going to do that. Because let's just say like one, I already told you that like the over the course of the season for one shift, a lot of stuff happens, and I mean a lot of stuff happens.
Suction. Med student down.
Welcome to the pit. Let's go save some lives.
Now, I will say, I have worked in the medical field, not in an emergency room.
Okay.
But working in the medical field, when it rains, it pours in a single shift. And if someone says the words, "Oh, it's quiet tonight. We're having a quiet night." Can you bleep? It's about to hit the fan. It's hitting the fan and it's going everywhere, and you need to clean it up, but you're out of paper towels. That's the kind of night it's going to be, and it's terrible, and everyone's having a stroke and everyone's having a seizure all at the same time, and there's only 2 people on, and it's bad.
Oh.
Medical field is tough. Healthcare heroes are our heroes, etc. I was not strong enough to be one of you, which is why I'm sitting here recording a podcast.
I will say, definitely watch The Pit. There's a certain plot thing that happens near the end of it that increases things even more so. For like, I'll just say this: this is the worst shift of all time for some of these people.
Okay.
They are like first years, they're interns, like that kind of thing, and those are some of the characters they kind of introduce us to the world of the pit, like as our like POV characters. Basically, this is the kind of like first shift that would either for a fact this is what you're going to do the rest of your life, you definitely went to medical school for this, or you're giving up after today. It's that kind of shift. It's a hell of a season, aka 15 hours.
That's I do like that. That again, I don't want to call it a gimmick either, but that gimmick for a show, I like that. I like watching shows that are paced like that because they keep my attention, because I have the attention span of a fruit fly. So it's appreciated when it can keep my attention and also not tell me what's going on screen the whole time.
I think you'd also be glad to hear that it, like I said earlier, the season finale did premiere technically last night and today.
So I can sit and binge it all.
Yes, you can binge it all. Because that's the other thing. Whenever an episode would end, it can end very, very abruptly. It can, and because especially the fact that it's in real time, so it's like the next second is the next episode.
Does the season end really abruptly? Is the season
no. They kind of the way they end it is basically like the shift's over, like people get to go leave. It's not just like the 15 hours up, cut to black, that kind of thing. Cut to black, wait for 3 years for another season. Yeah, there's a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to in real time, like that kind of thing. But like, yeah, like no, it isn't an abrupt ending. You know, things are wrapping up, like that kind of stuff, basically. I'll have to give it a watch.
See, we have some new faces with us this morning. Good morning, good morning. Come on over. Starting with second-year resident Dr. Melissa King, fresh from the VA.
Everyone calls me Mel. I'm so happy to be here.
Trinity Santos, intern.
Victoria Giavatti, MS3.
Dennis Whitaker, MS4.
Welcome to the pit.
We got 2 traumas from the T. 5 minutes out.
Okay, copy that. Actually, this is the most...
And speaking of wrapping up, we will actually be wrapping up this episode of the HavenScope Podcast. Thank you all so much for watching this week, as I say every time. Merci beaucoup. Ooh, what does that mean? As the French would say. Thank you very much. Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, because I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, even though I just heard it, Allie. But thank you so much for being on this episode, Allie. Thank you for having me, Will. All right, and I hope everyone has a great whenever they're watching this. Have a great whenever you're watching this.